Hi, good morning, and welcome back to the Kristin Omdahl Show. We are live in Southwest Florida at the beach. This is the beautiful Gulf of Mexico behind me. I'm Kristin Omdahl, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're having a great day so far. It's Monday morning, and if you have questions for me, please ask. If you feel welcome to say hello, or let me know if you have questions for me. What have you been working on? Let's see. Let's see who's here. I'll wait a few seconds for people to pop over from pre-chat and notifications. And hi, Joe and Thea and Judy. Good morning. Good morning, Grace and Lisa. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hi, Grace. Hi, Lori and Lisa. Good morning. Judy, good morning. Welcome back to the Kristin Omdahl Show. This is episode 910. Hi, Leona. And we are at the beach. How pretty is it here? Oh, shoot, did I forget to bring? I forgot one little thing that I wanted to bring to show you this morning. It's in the car, but we got plenty of other things to talk about. I'll show you that thing tomorrow. It is pretty at the beach this morning. And for those of you that ask me what the temperature is all the time, and I never have any idea, I did look in my car this morning. It was 81 degrees when I was pulling into the parking lot. However, sitting here in the sun feels quite a bit warmer than that already. But I tried to find a spot where my camera could be in the shade and I would be in the sun, and we'll see how long this lasts, because it depends on, the camera could still end up getting in the sun before we know it. Thanks everybody for joining me live. Few quick things to go over first. I did an inverted French braid, aka Dutch braid, for my bangs this morning. I don't know if you can see that. And I left the rest of my hair down. I tried a new shampoo last night. I did a little research on Amazon a while back and tried to find what the best shampoo was for making your hair feel and look thicker and fuller. And turns out there was one shampoo that was the #1 rated shampoo for that. And I got the shampoo and conditioner set. I think it was delivered yesterday. Right, it was delivered yesterday because I used it for the first time last night. And I don't know if it's going to take a while before it really shows results, but because it was so highly recommended and highly rated, I decided to try it. And so far, I really love the way my hair feels. This is just air dried and slept on hair, and I love the fact that I have a little bit of a wave to my hair. It does feel a little fuller, but I will give you more information as I have it. Just for day one, I'm excited about it. I think it feels good. Anyway, you can find that in my Amazon shop. Hi, Debbie and Rita, Terry, good morning. Hi, Anna. Judy's sharing a link to it right now. It's a biotin shampoo and conditioner set. And I don't wash my hair every day, so it was a little on the pricey side, being $30 for both the shampoo and conditioner, but they are large bottles. And the fact that I don't wash my hair every day, if it works and it's great, it's gonna last me a long time. Hi, Rita. Hi, Val. Good morning. Hi, Marianne. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. I got a lot of work done. I'm worked on quite a bit of videos and samples, and which reminds me, I have a new tutorial video coming out today. It'll be a live premiere right after the show, and it is to teach you how to do a garter tab cast on for the Lagertha knit shawl pattern. And I'm going to back up so you can see it. I did get a great question on YouTube this weekend in the comments. Someone asked how you could make this shawl into an Afghan. And for those of you who are beginners and maybe just barely reading patterns, this wouldn't apply to you. But if you are someone with a more depth to your skill level in knitting, I think that this is an easy fix that you could follow and still be able to use the charts and everything. So this is a half hexagon, meaning there are 3 repeats of the pattern, and it's worked back and forth in rows. If you wanted to do 6 repeats of the pattern and work in the round, you could take this pattern and make it a full hexagon, meaning 6-sided Afghan worked in the round. Or you could make it a 4-sided Afghan and make a square Afghan knit in the round. So you could either choose to do 4 repeats and make it a square, or do 6 repeats and make it a hexagon. Either way, if you did that and worked in the round, you could get more of an Afghan shape. So keeping in mind that you would double the yarn to go from a half hexagon to a full hexagon. But for those of you, and keep in mind, if that's where you're going with this, you could do it on in other yarns too. This is a top-down construction in rows, which means it would be a center-out construction in rounds. So you could do this to make a very fine weight shawl and Be So Fine yarn, or Be So Sporty, a number 1 or number 2 yarn. You could make a baby blanket in DK weight Be So Baby yarn. You could make a baby blanket in any of the yarns. You would just work from the center out. So regardless of your gauge, then you would just make enough rows or rounds to your desired size. Does that make sense? So this has 1, 2, 3, 4 row repeats of the pattern, but if you wanted to make, let's say you did a thinner yarn, you would need more rows to get the same size. But the pattern is very easy to recognize the repeat once you've done multiple increases. It's very easy to keep going if that's what you wanted to do. You could also make this a triangular shawl if you wanted to do only 2 repeats. Let's pretend like this 3rd repeat doesn't exist. Here we go. And that's what it would look like for, and this is what it would look like as a triangular shawl if you only wanted to do 2 repeats instead of 3. What would I call this skill level? I would call this maybe advanced beginner. This is not an intermediate pattern. There are not a lot of complicated things going on. Once you learn the stitches for the stitch pattern, it's very simple increases and decreases, meaning yarn overs and some decreases. It's not very complicated, and it is easily memorized after time. So I wouldn't call it like brand spanking new beginner, but I would consider maybe advanced beginner. I do not consider this an intermediate level pattern. So what's interesting about this pattern, and if you haven't done it before, is what a garter tab cast on is. And it's really interesting, and it's something that can be used on so many different types of top-down construction shawl patterns. And that's where, once you decide what your selvage edge stitch count is going to be, meaning these flat stitches here along the edge, see how I have a garter stitch tab, or a garter stitch selvage edge along the entire shawl? Well, that is a 5-stitch selvage edge on each side. And so once you get going in the pattern, it would be knit the first 5 and last 5 stitches on your wrong side rows where you would have the purling in the middle. But in order to make that selvage edge go across the entire top of the shawl, you can't do that until it's working in rows, right? So what you do is for this particular pattern, you cast on 5 stitches, and you work back and forth in those 5 stitches for the length of your garter tab. And then at the next row, you start working in the U of top down by working the 5 stitches along this side of the tab, picking up and knitting along the bottom at the end of rows here, and then picking up and knitting the 5 stitches from the other side of the garter tab. And so once you've worked this row, then you start working the shawl in the top-down construction. Maybe that seems complicated with me showing it like this, but when you watch the tutorial video, it will make a lot more sense. I've done this technique on many shawls in the past, and it's something that I get questions on a lot, that when you're reading the pattern, sometimes it's hard to visualize when a pattern says pivot, pick up and knit across the end of rows, pivot and pick up and knit along the cast on. People don't understand what that means visually without seeing it, so I think this video is going to be super helpful. And like I said, once you learn it for this pattern, you'll understand it and visualize it for any other pattern that you decide to knit that has a garter tab construction. Does anybody have any questions about that? Wow, it got steamy. As soon as that sun comes up, it starts to get steamy. And I picked up, started a new project this morning. You know how we have some Cardi vests? Well, I noticed that haven't done a Cardi vest, not Cardi vest, what's it called? Cardi Wrap. I've done quite a few Cardi Wraps lately in crochet, but I haven't done one in knitting, so I'm going to make, you know, like a rectangular shawl but with armhole openings. I'm going to make one in knitting, and so I decided to pick up Be So Easy yarn in color fuchsia this morning to make it. And I'm going to use a stitch pattern that I happen to love when I want something to be non-curling from edge to edge, and I'm doing mistake rib, which is it called mistake rib or broken rib? I can't remember. It's one row of knitting, one row of knit, one purl one. It'll look like it's rib, but it will be a flat non-curling stitch pattern, which means I don't have to add a separate stitch pattern for the edging, which I thought was interesting as well. Makes it nice and easy. So we'll do, I cast on from, can't decide if this is going to be center back or front, but what I'll end up doing is making it in one piece with two armhole openings that will be like, you know, glorified large buttonhole openings. Joan's happy I'm making knitting projects. Good. Anybody have any questions about anything we talked about so far? I like this particular stitch pattern to give you the look of a knit one, purl one rib without having all of the flexibility in the stitch pattern. I want it to lie flat. I don't want it to oh, is someone asking to see the shawl? Yeah, I have lots of pictures of the shawl. Well, the shawl wrap right around your, it's a very large shawl. If you follow the link to the pattern page, you'll see all the dimensions, and I modeled it in a variety of ways to show you how big it is. It is a very large, generous shawl. It could be worn even as a cape. So there it is. I don't have any of my accessories here this morning to show you that you could do this with a corset tie. You could close it with a butterfly clasp. You could make a belt and weave it through so that it would be a belted cape, but obviously you can see it is a very generously sized shawl. And that really doesn't do justice of it. I would really suggest that you look it up on my website. I have lots of photos on there where you can see how it drapes across the body in a variety of styles. Let's make sure I did that right. You know, Karen, don't put pressure on yourself if you think that you have a hard time knitting. Anytime that you're more focused on, you know, the negative side of learning something new, it just might not be the right time to do it. You really do. Just once you know, I really think it's more important to focus on the things that bring you joy. So if crochet brings you more joy right now, then focus there. There will come a time possibly when you're more open to learning something else, but when you are focused on the struggles of learning something, it's probably just not the right time. You know, where your brain focuses has a lot to do with your ability to learn something new. And instead of getting upset with yourself about it, it's better to just let it go, right? So put something on the back burner. Okay, knitting's not the thing for you right now. There may come a day when there is a project that you're like, oh my God, I have to make that, right? When you can say something like that to yourself, you'll be amazed at how much more open-minded you are to learning something new when you find something that you really, really, really want to make. The other advice would be to, if you really want to keep pursuing it, even if you're struggling, I would start with really small things. Do something that's instant gratification so that you can at least get some sort of satisfaction, even if you're still struggling. I would also start with something that was maybe larger, that you needed larger needles, so thicker yarn. I think Be So Easy yarn is a great yarn to use for beginner projects because it's thick, it moves quickly, it's easy to see. The needles are bigger, so it's easier to hang on to. I think bigger is always better for learning, and then once you get down some of the techniques, then you can add in the delicacy of, or the delicate nature of working with thinner yarns as well. But I think this is a great place to begin if you still want to pursue it right now. And if you want to hold off until you're more excited about learning it, that's fine too. Like, just, there's no wrong way to, like I said, there's no wrong way to be creative, and there's no wrong way or time to decide to learn something new. If other crafts bring you more joy right now, then focus on those. That's fine too. There's no shame in liking one or the other or different crafts. And at any given time, any one of us could be more excited about one thing or another. Some days I'm more excited about coming up with new recipes. Some days I'm more excited about knitting or crochet. Doesn't mean I love them any less. It just means there's certain moods or certain times when something's more appealing to me, and that's okay for you as well. All right, I've probably missed a lot of comments because I haven't really understood some of the conversation. Maybe it's side conversation too, but let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Wow, this is a good stitch pattern for talking too. I have to knit every stitch on one row and then knit one, purl one on the next row. Both things that don't require me to look at the yarn at all, which is great. I could even watch a movie with subtitles. We all know how challenging that can be when you're knitting or crocheting, right? Yeah, learning how to fix mistakes is definitely an important skill to learn in anything. Comments are going too fast. The comment went too fast. I couldn't see it. Hi, Hooked by Suze. The only thing that I feel like is important to be mindful of when you're doing this particular stitch pattern is that it's the right side row when you're knitting straight across, and when you're doing the knit one, purl one, it's on the wrong side row. And so you can't see if you're on target or not. So if you got off by a stitch on this row, it would be hard to notice. So if you notice, I keep turning my work over. So on my purl stitch, I need to make sure that it matches up with a knit stitch on the other row. Because if you're doing knit one, purl one on your wrong side row, you realize your purl stitch is the one that looks front facing knit on the other row. So as I'm doing my purl stitch, I turn over to make sure that that's the one that looks like a stockinette stitch. Just a little tip for sometimes the best way to fix mistakes is to know how to avoid them too, right? So any kind of tip I can give that tells you how to spot potential mistakes, or how to be extra mindful, or when to be extra mindful of potential mistakes like that, I think that that can be very helpful to avoid mistakes as well. So I know that that's a common place to make a mistake, so I'm going to regularly check to make sure that I'm not making that mistake. That'd be a good time to do this in front of a mirror. Hi, Sherry. My screen's gone dark, so I guess my camera did not stay in the shade. All right, so there will be the Lagertha shawl video for the garter tab today. Tomorrow will be the first video for the Peri Pocket Shawl, the crochet pattern, the Peri Pocket Shawl crochet pattern. That video will air tomorrow after the show. Will be a live premiere, and in that video I show you how to sew the pockets onto the shawl and do a little bit of the styling as well. So that'll be a fun video tomorrow too. just bummed I forgot the last thing in the car that I wanted to show you. Anyway, there's time for that though. Hoping to finish this row so I can show you the beginning of this stitch pattern. Okay, hopefully there's enough now that you can see a little bit of it. Okay, so you know how a 1x1 rib, which is knit one, purl one rib, you see the knit stitch, then you see the reverse knit stitch, or you see like a stockinette version of a knit stitch, and then you see the reverse stockinette version. Well, in this one, it's alternating stockinette for one stitch and garter stitch for the next stitch, and that's how we get a flat fabric instead of a fabric that condenses. A knit one, purl one stitch pattern is condensed, so that's how it gives it good stretch. Well, on a project like this where I'm making a rectangular wrap with armhole openings, I don't want it to move around a lot. I want it to have a fixed flat fabric. So to get the look from a distance of a knit one, purl one, where you see those columns or stripes of the stockinette, I wanted to do it where it still lies flat, and the way to do that is in this, I believe it's called mistake rib, where it's one row knit one, purl one on the wrong side, and then on the right side row it's just knit across, and that's how we get a look of ribbing but with a garter base instead of a reverse stockinette base. And stockinette and reverse stockinette are both curling patterns. So garter stitch is a non-curling pattern, and so by adding that element to our column stripe stitch pattern, we're getting a flat fabric. Isn't that interesting? There are so many interesting things to talk about in the anatomy of any given stitch pattern, and there's so many different reasons why to choose different stitch pattern. Again, for this particular one, to get it to lie flat and to not condense. It is fascinating, and you know, you can convert stitch patterns that way too. Sometimes there can be a lace pattern that's done in stockinette, and if you want it to be flat, you could do it in a garter base instead, meaning on your wrong side rows that would be normally purl across, you can choose to do it on a garter base, which would be to knit on the wrong side. What type of needles am I using? These are bamboo needles that you can find in my Amazon shop. They come as full sets, and I have them listed by lengths, so I sell them in multiple, no, I don't sell them, I don't sell knitting needles. Amazon sells them, and I've shared the ones that I buy in my Amazon shop. And this is one of the lengths. This looks like it's probably the 31-inch length. But they come in lots of different lengths, and then they come color-coded and marked with the sizes. I'm using the 9mm, but it came in a whole set of a large range of sizes, and you can find them, all of them, in my Amazon shop, amazon.com/shop/Kristin Omdahl. I also wrote a blog post last week explaining a lot of tips for working with circular needles, whether you're working in rows or rounds. Lots of great information there. You can find that on my blog. So when you go to my website, KristinOmdahl.com, you go to the top bar, the word blog will be there. You click on that and it'll take you to my blog, where you'll find all sorts of things, including that very recent blog post about circular needles. Judy's posting a link to the bamboo circular needles on Amazon right now, the ones that I'm using. So the person that asked, you can take a look at that product page, and it'll show you exactly the needles that I'm using. Does anybody have any other questions? Lots of great questions, everybody. I appreciate it. My hair is soaking wet. It got that hot out here. Isn't that crazy? I don't see any questions. You're welcome, Debbie. All right, let's poke a quote. No, let's not poke a quote. Let's pull out a quote. Okay, this is from Create, Share, Inspire Notebook, Volume 1, Issue 4. I have 7 issues of this. You can find all of these creative writing journals on my website. This one on page 40 has a quote from Jean de La Fontaine. This is a good one. A person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. This could probably mean a lot of different things to different people, but one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is overthinking everything. And so this is what it reminds me of, is, you know, getting paralyzed with fear and not making decisions because you overthink things too much. Let it go and just let things happen the way they're supposed to happen sometimes, right? So thank you, Jean de La Fontaine. A person often meets his destiny on the road he took to avoid it. I love it. And if that means something else to you, share it in the comments today. I'm sure other people would like to hear I would like to hear what that means to any of you. So if you want to share what that quote means to you in the comments when we're no longer live, that would be awesome as well. So this is a live stream podcast or a show, whatever. It's live from the time that I go live and when there's a red button that says live on top. But as soon as I finish the broadcast, it gets converted into a video, and that's where most people watch this, is as a recorded video. But if you watch the recording or come back to the recording, I would love to hear your thoughts on the quote. That might be fun. Anyway, thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. I hope you enjoyed my show and tell, chatting with me and everyone else. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I'll see you for the premiere of the Lagertha video part 1 in a couple of minutes, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode of the Kristin Omdahl show. Okay, bye.